tested them. I had a young lady recently. She was 16 years old, 10th grade, straight A's and B's all the way up until her sophomore year. This year she started failing out, D's and F's all on her report card. She was on third week, in danger of repeating. They said she needs to get tested for a learning disability. I said, wait a minute now. If this young lady went from kindergarten to 9th grade with no problems, and all of a sudden she started to fail out in the 10th grade, that's not a learning disability. Learning disabilities show up in the 5th and the 6th, not in the 10th. If you made it to 10th grade and you only got 2 years left, then chances are that's not a learning disability. So I interviewed the young lady, and what did I find out? Her grandmother, who she loved, had passed away recently. Nobody got her any grief counseling. Her grandmother raised her as if she was her mother. In fact, she was the primary caregiver. So the young lady was going through a grieving process, which is totally normal for children and adults. But because the mother and father didn't want to accept the fact that she was grieving her grandparents, her grandmother, and because the school could care less about whether she was grieving or not, she got sent to me to be evaluated for special education. She had no business being tested for special education. So you have to slow it down. Or the young boys who are hyperactive and inattentive and can't sit still, it's not because of ADHD. Sometimes it's not even because of the diet. I got African-American boys who are raised on a strictly vegan or vegetarian diet, and they're still being referred for ADHD testing. How do you explain that? Well, it's real simple. One young man, his father was locked up. He got locked up a year ago. Mother won't take him. She says she's not wasting no time to take her son up to see his daddy in jail. He should have never got locked up. So the son is being punished because the father is arrested. The son is being punished because the mother's too lazy to inconvenience herself to take him to see his father. And that brought on what appeared to be ADHD symptoms. There's all types of conditions that can mimic ADHD. So why are you so quick to reach for the pill? Why is everybody so hyper vigilant for the pill? It's because we don't want to do our jobs as parents anymore. I know we don't want to hear it, but it's the reality. Okay? Children need love, not drugs. And when a child is raised with discipline, you don't see ADHD. You don't get conduct disorder. Children who live in homes where parents have consistent discipline programs, there's no need for psychiatric medicine. This only comes up when somebody takes a break. And you have to understand as a parent, you can never take a break. What we like to do is raise them from birth until 10 years old. And then we take a break from 11 to 14. And then at 14, when they start to get out of hand, we want to reel them back in, failing to realize that you done let him go wayward for so long that now you can't bring them back in. And so now you reach for the pills because you took your time off. What you need to understand is as a parent, you're going to put your time in one way or the other. You're going to put your time in from birth until age 17, or you're going to put your time in visiting your son in jail from 17 to 35. You will put the time in, but you choose how. You can do it preventively by being a good parent, or you can do it reactionarily by visiting a child who was not raised by a good parent when he goes to jail to get incarcerated. And so now you got to take, 2 and 3 trips to the prison, all types of money on his books, lawyer fees. You're going to end up spending more in the long run if you don't do what you're supposed to do in the short run. But the problem in the hood, the problem in the African-American community, I don't care if you're middle class or poor, is the same thing. Black mothers and fathers got better things to do than raise their children. For those of us who are well educated, we too busy what? Chasing our careers. And for those of us who don't have such an education, we got to work 2 and 3 jobs to keep a roof over the baby's head and food in their mouths. So whether you're poor or rich, comfortable or not, the children are struggling because you got other priorities other than them. This is the reality. One of the biggest differences between African society, I'm not talking about 5,000 years ago, I'm talking about today. One of the biggest differences between African society and African American society is the children and elders tend to be the center of village life. But for us, they tend to be inconveniences that we try to get rid of as quickly as we can. Ain't no daddy at home disorder. You cannot change disruptive behavior unless you're going to be consistent doing it. That's rule number 1. You got to be consistent. You punish on Monday, but you don't punish on Tuesday. You punish on Wednesday, but you don't punish on Thursday. You punish on Friday, but the weekend they can do whatever the hell they want because you got better things to do. You cannot change behavior. You cannot teach discipline if you don't have it. You cannot teach discipline if you don't have it. And for my moms, I thank you all for doing an excellent job. We're doing the best you can trying to raise these boys. But I need y'all to do it just a little bit better. What I'm finding with single mothers is when there's no man in the house, the oldest boy gets elevated to man of the house status. When the oldest boy gets elevated to man of the house status, he now becomes his mother equal instead of her subsidiary. When he becomes his mother's equal, she's now dependent on that oldest son for her emotional support. And if she makes him upset, he might withhold some emotional support from his mother. So he's controlling her with his level of attention. It's important that mothers understand that he's your son. Nothing wrong with him being man of the house, but not totally man of the house to such an extent that you feel powerless to chastise him because you have made him your mate. Not sexually, psychosocially. You do an excellent job with your daughters. Daughters grow up, they're responsible, after school job, full scholarship, captain of the cheerleading team. And then look at him, Raheem, on the couch, no life, 50 tattoos. Go to school when he feel like it. And yet and still when Christmas roll around or Kwanzaa roll around, you're doing what? Buying him everything he wants, even though he didn't earn nothing. The job of a black parent raising a black boy is what? What is your essential responsibility if you're raising an African-American male child who's considered public enemy number one? Your essential responsibility is to teach him discipline. discipline. If you do not teach that, you have failed. Because white society is waiting for him to make a mistake so they can catch him slipping. Which is why I tell you, stop giving your children warnings. There's no such thing as a warning. If they've done something that requires a consequence, give them the consequence. What is warnings for? And do you know why you spend so much time yelling? Especially my mothers and grandmothers. Why do y'all spend so much time yelling? Mothers always call me up and say, Dr. Umar, his father tell him to do something, he does it one time. But I got to ask him 3 and 4 times. I got to beg and plead. Is it because I'm a woman and his father's a dad? Nope. It's because his father's consistent and you're not. The reason you have to yell is because you're too lazy to get up and do something about what he did. Let me say that again. The only reason why you yelling is because you're too lazy to give a consequence. That's the only reason why you yelling. The only reason why you're giving out warnings is because you're too lazy to give out a consequence. All that's laziness. Cut out the warnings. Cut out the threats. Cut out the screaming. Fathers tend not to yell. We say it one time. They don't do it. They know it's a consequence coming. Why? Because men understand that they have to hold the structure together. They have to set the boundaries. It's not in our DNA. We're socialized to be a little bit more consistent with the discipline than women. Now, by nature, sisters are nurturing. But unfortunately, because of the war on black men, many of y'all have to do what? Wear both sets of the parental pants. And you got to do a little bit better job than what you are doing. You raising your daughter and you loving your son. And you have to stop that. Love them both, but raise them both too. And don't make excuses for why he's not what he's supposed to be. Because this world could care less about children with excuses. And no one cares about another black boy who didn't have enough discipline to make it. Academic discipline, emotional discipline. When I go to the prisons to speak, everybody in jail is in there for what? A lack of discipline in some area. I don't know what it is, but once I talk to them, I'll find it out. Either emotional discipline, they couldn't control their emotions, they end up taking somebody's life. Sexual discipline, financial discipline, academic discipline. But everything you become and don't become is related to discipline, especially your children. And what is the definition of discipline in the first place? I'll give you mine. It's the ability to teach a child to do what has to be done when it needs to be done, irrespective of whether he likes it or not. Now, how many of you can say that your children have academic discipline? How many of you can say that when that Miami Heat Indiana Pacers game comes on tonight, and you know your son or daughter got a test tomorrow morning or paper due tomorrow morning, how many of them got the discipline to turn off the TV and get their work done? And I'm not going to blame the child because it was your job to teach him that. And then some of you do what? When the child graduates, you send somebody who barely got out of high school 20,000 miles away so they can go to college as if they're going to miraculously change their academic level of discipline. And so now you're taking out $20,000 and $30,000 in loans to finance his or her education at Howard or Harvard or Hampton or Spelman or UCLA or Virginia Tech or wherever you choose to send them. And then when they come back home in 2 years, dropped out on academic probation, you get mad at them when you knew they wasn't going to finish because you never taught them self-control. College is the new casino. What do you do when you go to the casino for my gambling people? Or my folks who like to play the numbers? You put $1 down, hoping you get 100 back. You put 500 down, hoping you get 5,000. College is the new casino. It's the new gamble. You put $100,000 education down, hoping they reap about $1 million over their lifespan. But are they guaranteed to get it? Not at all. Right now, as I stand before you, 2 million black people with master's and doctorate degrees in America can't find work. The only children who should be sent are those who are guaranteed to finish, who got the discipline to finish, who want to become something that is actually relevant to the economic order. You don't pay $30,000 a year so your daughter can study how grasshoppers reproduce on the moon. You don't pay $30,000 a year so your son can study the winter weatherization of the planet Venus. Because there's no job for that. There's no business for that. 75% of all college degrees are nonsense degrees. So if you're going to finance an education, make sure it's in something that has some practical utility in the neighborhood when they're done. Half your children need to be going to trade school, becoming plumbers and carpenters and electricians, auto mechanics and bricklayers, woodworkers and HVAC specialists, computer networkers and technicians. That's where many of them should be going. 2 years, they come out certified. 2 years, no loan debt, almost no money owed to the bank. They can work for themselves, go work for the White Racers Union or whatever they choose to do. But they can make a living off of 2 years after high school. One thing about the statistics that you got to be careful of is most of the statistics only keep a record of black men who who cohabitate or are married to the mothers. If you are a father who don't live in the house with the children, a lot of statistical analyses will write you off as not being involved because you're not in the house. So we have to make sure we account for all the black men who don't live with their children but are so involved that you wouldn't know it. Are y'all following me? These are the ones when they tell the teacher, well, you know, I actually live in a different home. They're like, teacher, like, I never knew that. You see, that's the mark of the good father. When people don't know, you don't even live there because they always see in your face. Now, fathers, make sure that the custodial parent, the mom, the grandma, doesn't turn you into a police officer only for your children. Some of us are destroying the relationships with our children because we allow the custodial parent to only call on us for police reasons. Are y'all following me? He's hanging with gangs. He's sneaking girls in the house. He's not going to school. Teachers are, If you don't have a relationship with your son, you don't have grounds to discipline. Discipline must be done with love or it's not discipline. It's abuse. And that goes for the ladies too. If you are non-custodial and that parent says, look, you need to come and get him because you're the mom and she's a girl, or you're the dad and he's a boy, you have to politely tell them, I need to get to that point. Me and my son just hooked back up. I cannot risk destroying this relationship so you can have law and order in your house. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but if you never kept me out in the first place, we wouldn't be going through this. So I don't like what he's doing to you. Even if I do, I'm not going to tell her. I don't like what he's doing to you. But I got to build the relationship first. The worst thing I could do as a therapist is come in and go right to a child's problem. You never do that. Well, I saw him, playing with his ding-ding at night. I sit down with her son. I'm not going to talk about that. That boy don't know me. Hey, why you playing with your meat, son? Your mama said you was flocking a flogger. What's wrong? I can't do that. How you like school? Do you got a relationship with your dad? What's your after school program? Who your favorite basketball player? And then the parents is coming in and saying, excuse me, sir, we paying you, right? For the past 4 meetings, you've done nothing but talk about what my son liked to do. And then I got to explain to the parent that therapy or building a relationship with your child who you ain't seen in a while is like unpeeling an onion. You got to take it layer by layer. You don't go straight in or you'll mess the whole damn onion up. Okay? I got to peel. And when I think he's comfortable enough with me, then I slowly start touching the reason you asked me to meet with him in the first place. That's the same thing you do as a non-custodial parent. Remember, a good parent is a what? Benevolent dictator. A good parent is a benevolent dictator. What is a benevolent dictator? Someone who controls the outcome. But to the people they controlling,
They not even aware of it. It's like the United States government and black people. Okay? Okay? So when you're dealing with your children, you got to be the same way. Your son say, Dad, I want to go over here and play basketball for high school, but that school got the worst murder rate in the neighborhood, but they are #1 in the country, right? So you like, I need him over here. I got to find a way to kind of make him want to go there without me telling him he's going to go there. So I might take him to an open house. I might take him to a couple games. I might set it up for some of the players to come holler at my son. That's what a benevolent dictator does. You are a strategist. I don't want my daughter hanging with them girls no more. But I can't come out and tell her that. I got to find a way to make her like this group. You must become a benevolent dictator. Never steal from your children the ability to make decisions for themselves, because if you do, when they become adults, they'll be so anxious about making decisions that they'll never be able to. These are the people who smoke cigarettes all the time, alcohol all the time, to drown out their worry because they grew up in homes where the father ruled with an iron fist, the mother ruled with an iron fist. All you're doing is messing those children up. It's like a girl who's 15 and naturally she's liking boys, and you telling her, I better not see you looking at them, touching them, talking to them, boom, boom. Then she's like, Dad, what, you want to be gay? What's going on in this house? Okay? You can keep her from having sex, but you want to introduce her slowly to masculine energy so she'll know how to deal with it up in college when your ass ain't around no more. And she become the biggest buck wild at Morgan. Talking about my baby got Jesus in her life. Yeah, and a few other people. Children of remarried black mothers are less likely to have contact with their biological fathers. Now, there's multiple reasons for all of this. But ladies and gentlemen, because I want to keep it, it can be either or, but it's normally the fellas, but it can be ladies too. Listen, I don't care how good your wife is, your new wife. She loves your daughter, she's genuine, she treats her like a queen, right? You say, well, her mother is a loser, she's on weed, and I don't like the guy she dating, and she never done nothing with her life. So I want my daughter to forget about her real mother and just latch on to the stepmom. It don't work that way. Mothers, it's the same thing. Well, his father's a deadbeat, in and out of jail. He ain't nothing but a thug and a gangster. My husband is a lawyer. He has his own business. He gives my son allowance. He takes him out. He really loves my son because he never had one. That's good. That's real cute. But guess what? Children want their own. And you got to make sure that your significant other don't take it as rejection. He ain't rejecting you. But it is natural for a child to want to know their own roots, not false ones. Are y'all following me? Sooner or later, they're going to ask for their own. And if you don't let them, they'll seek them out. You know how many calls I get from non-custodial mothers and fathers that say their kids showed up on a house and they wasn't even in the phone book. They said, how did they find out where I live? Oh, a child will find their father and they will find their mother, and you better hope to hell, to heaven, that you ain't the reason they ain't been around. Because do you know what I'm getting a lot of calls for now? Parents who calling me because the children want to whip their behind because they told them that mommy or daddy wanted nothing to do with them, only to find out that it was a lie. And now they hate the parent who did it. Karma will come back. Mothers and fathers. So I got like 12 cases right now, 12, where girls wanting to beat the mom up, boys wanting to beat the dad up, all because of what? You told me they didn't want me, and I had found out otherwise. It comes back. Role of the court. Now, the court don't help this at all. My God, there's nothing worse than going in front of a white man and say, can I see my daughter? And one time the judge looked at me and said, wait a minute, I know your face. I said, oh, shit. He was on YouTube. You're that psychologist. Not me. I sweep streets, dog. I don't know who you talking about. Judge knew who I was, but I was able to get out of it. Because he would have never gave me my baby. But it hurts a father or a mother to have to go to the enemy and beg permission to see their child. You should never do, no matter how much you don't like him, no matter how much you don't like her, don't pull the white supremacy card. The white supremacy card is when you use the power of institutional racism to fight the other parent. That is almost an unforgivable sin. Never do that. Don't no white man care about the stability of no black family. And guess what? You can't really blame them, because if a mother don't care about the best interest of a daughter, why should the courts?